Well, I am Marc Silber. I'm an author in Carmel, California. And I want to let you know that our show is brought to you by our good friends at Bay Photo Lab. I love these guys. They just recently made some prints for me that I have for sale in downtown Carmel. If you do come to our little town of Carmel, which is full of all sorts of interesting places, galleries, restaurants, and whatnot, you have to let me know and we'll meet up and have a cup of coffee or something. Anyway, here's what you can get discounts on right now at Bay Photo Lab. They have a special on thin wraps. You don't have to design it just like this, but they're very thin and they're cool. 20% off, 25% off on any album. Albums are basically books. So you can make a book, you can get 25% off on it, and you'll be in really good company. My good friend Bob Holmes uses Bay Photo Lab. We actually did a print run for him for a show fairly recently. And Bambi Cantrell uses them. So does Scott Kelby, all sorts of really good photographers. So you're in good company, and they're going to give you excellent underscore customer service, because that's what they're all about. Okay, so I see some other folks who have joined us. That's great to see Kenneth from Denmark and Stephen from Essex. I probably have been through Essex. I've been to Sussex. I love Sussex. And Southern Maryland, Leon. I have family there. And JM is from Niagara. Okay, so we've got people from all over the place. All right, I want to talk to you guys some more about what the enemy of creativity is. And when I talk to you, I really want you to look at this. Don't just be kind of a spectator watching TV. I want this to slice through and really be something that makes a difference for you. And that's really how I like to present my material. I'm not here just to be a talking head on TV. I want it to be something that penetrates and changes your life. And that's really why I write my books, and especially Create. The thing about the book Create is it's got exercises after each chapter. Those are things that actually will move the needle for you. In other words, you will get somewhere. It's not just a matter of what you think. It's a matter of changing things in your life to allow more creativity. All right. There's the phone that I didn't silence. It's my motorcycle repairman telling me my Vespa is repaired. Okay, let's talk about this some more here. One thing I don't want you to be is your own worst enemy in terms of creativity. How can that be? Shoot yourself in the foot. Every time you minimize yourself, you think I'm not good enough, you self-criticize yourself. And by criticizing, I don't mean, well, I could do this better and therefore I'm going to follow this. That's fine. And that's a good professional way to approach things. You should always be raising the bar. I mean, I do that constantly. Every time before I release anything, and Jared knows this, we go through it so many different ways and look at it, making sure that we're delivering the best possible product. I do that with my prints. I have to look at them and see if there's any little flaw, something like that. I get it fixed. I don't want to sell things that are flawed, but that's a positive professional approach. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the kind of self-criticism that goes in your head and causes you to back away. It's bad enough having critics out there, but to have those critics right here. And honestly, that's what these guys out there do, the trolls and the vampires. They try to play into your own weak points, and that's their game. And it is unfortunately a game that they play that you don't have to go along with it. I say that, But I'm going to tell you, as any creative person, it's definitely hits you. I mean, when you see a really negative review or somebody's complaining about something that you produced or wrote or whatever, I do look at that, and it does bother me. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't bother me. I could sit here and go, oh, well, you guys should just wall yourself off. And well, it's really not that easy to do that. And I think every artist, every creative person struggles with that, because you want to be in touch with your audience. You want to know what's happening with them. And if there is something a negative, you want to fix it. But then there's the trolls and the vampires. They are not really telling you what's going on. They're using poison, and they're taking whatever's maybe there and then blowing it up or exaggerating it or changing it or even putting words there that you didn't say. So you have to scrape those guys off. It's like bird crap on your windshield. You don't let that ruin your drive because some pigeon or something took your new car and just splattered all over it. And that's what it is. Just clean it off, clean it out of the way, and don't let it drag you down. You got to immediately jump back out of that. And the best remedy for that is involve yourself in something more creative. But the self-criticism is where you're shooting yourself in the foot, not letting your own flow go and get out there. David Campbell made a big point out of that it's in the book, Create. We have a recording of it. He said, do not do that, because sometimes when you get going on a project, now David Campbell, if you don't know who he has produced or been the artist himself on in the neighborhood of 480 gold and platinum albums. 480. Imagine just being one of those, being a producer on one of those, but 480. This guy is really, really good. And he's worked with some of the biggest artists you can imagine. His son is back. So he's deeply involved in the creative process. And he said, look, once you get going, sometimes it's not that great at the beginning. You got to let it flow. You got to let it flow, because if you start self-criticizing, you're going to shut yourself down. This is a really, really important point. You go out and you're going to do street photography, let's say, and you get a few shots and you go, these really suck. I am no good at. I mean, don't you think we all do that? It's like, Mark, how corny. This is dumb. These people I'm not engaged with them. You just got to shove that aside and just keep going. What that actually is in the creative process, there's 5 stages, right? So it starts with visualization, knowing your equipment, then go to work, start capturing things, photographing, whatever it is, writing, and then you edit it. But that's a separate process. When you mix editing into your doing your craft, don't do that. It's actually a very negative way to go about it, because you're shutting yourself down. You want to get your flow going. Don't self-edit, don't self-criticize, and don't self-minimize. Those are all big ones that you got to just throw out the window. What are some stories? I'm curious to hear from you guys. Somebody just left me a message on YouTube that he said he'd missed some of his best shots because he was afraid when he went out and did street photography. I know what he's talking about. That fear will paralyze you. It'll send you going this way when you should go that way. And the only difference between a pro and an amateur is the pro just has to push through. We have this, we're putting out stuff constantly on Instagram as little reels. And there's one just recently, it hasn't been released yet, but it's from Bob Holmes. And you'll hear it. You guys should be following me on Instagram just for that reason. You can shut out everybody else if you want. But you should follow me because we're putting those out on Instagram. And Bob said, the difference between a pro and an amateur is as pros, we have to come back with the goods. And it doesn't matter if you are hungover, if you had a big fight with your wife, if you're tired, if you've got a headache, if you've got whatever, you are on assignment. You got to come back with the goods. You don't have the luxury ever of not coming back with the photographs that you were on assignment to produce. So it's a good thing to take that attitude. And if you are scared shitless, sorry, I don't know any other way to say it, then just use that. I get scared all the time. Listen, when I go up on stage, my adrenaline's jacked up. Before I go, what if I screw up? What if my it's a nightmare when you're doing like a PowerPoint or something. I had a big presentation to a room full of marketing people, top marketing people. And guess what? My audio didn't work. And I was playing videos, example videos, and the audio didn't friggin' work. And I'm fiddling with it. And the worst thing in the world is you're up on stage and you're fiddling with your own laptop and you're trying to figure out why the F this isn't working. And you're trying to, you maintain your cool and your poise, and you're in front of marketing people. So they're looking at you. You are your own marketing at that point. So you got to remain cool. Anyway, I had this room full of marketing people. I couldn't get the audio to work. I motioned to my assistant. I said, would you go get that guy that, is handling it? So he came back. He came and, he's tinkering around. And all of a sudden it started working. Okay, carried on. And one of the people who was there said, Mark, you demonstrated you're cool under pressure. And that's one of the reasons we decided to hire you. I got 6-figure jobs out of that room, even though that mishap. So it's scary, right? It's scary to put yourself out there, and it's scary to deal with equipment that could go south. And it's scary to stand up in front of a group who may or may not accept you. I started the presentation with what I thought was a warm-up joke, nothing. Crickets. And then I said something else after that. I went, well, the next thing, and somehow I got a little laugh out of the audience. But they weren't really there to be entertained by me. They weren't there to hear my jokes. They were there to learn something about video production, and I showed them. And right afterwards, I got a big 6-figure job out of that. And that made the whole thing definitely worthwhile. But if you back away from those opportunities, you think I'm not good enough, or I don't have my shit together well enough, don't let yourself miss those opportunities. You may never get them back. And I have missed those opportunities. I had a project. I'm just bearing my soul to you because this happens, right? I had a project. So I didn't know video production at all. I never really ever shot a video in my life, believe it or not. I was a still photographer. And I landed my sponsorship with SanDisk. This was remarkable. They actually said yes to my proposal, which was how all these interviews came about. And I said, I want to go out and interview these top pros, and I'm going to bring SanDisk into the discussion at some point. And the funny thing is they actually never said yes to me. They never said, you're hired. What they did was they invited me to lunch at the Four Seasons restaurant, Four Seasons Hotel restaurant in Palo Alto. They didn't ever say, Mark, you're hired. That was a production meeting. But I was pretty sure they weren't going to take me out to lunch to tell me I was not being hired. So I had some idea, but the funny thing was there was no big fanfare. It was like we went into a production meeting, and that was awesome. But here I am, never having produced a single video in my life. I went for it. Fortunately, I was working with a great team they had a track record of video production. And as soon as I could, I trained myself on video production. And I just dove into it. I had to learn, everything, because I found you cannot just rely on the quote expert. The first video that I shot with one of these guys that I hired was with Chase Jarvis in San Francisco. We did a whole interview in San Francisco. Standing, is really cool. It was in a very iconic location. We did the shoot. We shot B-roll. The next day I called him up and I said, "How's it look?" He said, "The B-roll looks great." Red flag. What do you mean the B-roll looks great? What about the A-roll, dude? Well, I left it on autofocus and it focused on behind you guys. So here we are. I've got Chase Jarvis, who at that time was a really big name in photography. And the first shoot I do with my new show is out of focus. And we fiddled with it for, trying to do different things. And you can't get back in focus if it's out of focus. Chase was good enough to say, that happened to me once. I hired a guy and he shot with a red camera and it was all out of focus. Now, Chase could have just dropped me. I had no track record that he should have believed in me. I didn't have a video show. I didn't have anything. But he was kind enough to say, "Mark, just come up to Seattle. We'll reshoot it." And we did. And that really helped launch my whole show with SanDisk. And then he introduced me to all sorts of other people. So don't let those fears, I'm just trying to tell you, it happens to all of us. Don't let those fears block you. Shit is going to happen. What you want to do is be as best prepared as you can, but stuff is going to happen that you just have to work around. And I learned right away, it doesn't matter if I'm hiring somebody who says they're the greatest cinematographer in the world, I have to check their settings. I got to check their focus. I've had people blow out, would have been a complete mess. They completely misexposed. I have to check behind every camera. It goes back to what Bob Holmes said. You are responsible for everything in the frame. And that includes the audio. That includes the way the video is being shot. That includes your still photography. You're responsible. You are responsible for everything. Does that make you more afraid or less afraid? Well, if you've got your hands on the wheel of a car, aren't you going to feel better than if you take your hands off and let it? I mean, I have a Tesla, so you can do that. You can self-drive. But it screws up sometimes, and it's not fun to have it go, You keep your hands on the wheel. You're fully responsible for everything in the frame. And if you have that as a mantra in your head, I'm telling you, that will overcome all sorts of barriers. I hope this has been helpful for you guys. I will continue to tell you my stories, and I want to hear your stories. But the most important thing is you got to reach out past that fear and go for it. Okay? That's my message. And you're responsible for everything in the frame. Keep tuned in, you guys. Follow me on Instagram right there, Marc Silber, because you're going to catch a lot of these reels. They're not going anywhere else. Follow me there. Subscribe remember to subscribe and enable the bell so you don't miss any of our great content. And this is good stuff, right? And leave your comments. I love reading your comments. I will respond to every one of them. Sometimes I just need thank you or a thumbs up or whatever, but I really do try to respond to every comment. And please tell your friends if you share this with people who need to see this, that's really helpful for you, for them, and for us. Okay? And beyond that, remember to get out and capture your own images of life. Stay creative, you guys, and we'll see you soon.